All right. In this video, I want to talk about somebody's questionable character because it reminds me of somebody I met before. Before I do, I'd like to read this passage here. I'm going to read it because I know it's a little blurry. It's Proverbs 3:13 through 15, and it says, Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She is more precious than rubies, and all things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. Now, why I bring this up is because of Donnie B. As you can see here, about 11 days ago, I posted on one of his videos my video about answering Donnie B's end times theology. In his reply that I got this morning, before I ended up going to do laundry, is he just says, except you didn't answer anything. So it's just very vague. I was like, well, what didn't I answer? Right? You can just bring it up right now and I'll answer it, right? And I was like, well, I haven't gone through the entire debate. I've gone through about, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes of it. It's a tedious thing to do. So if there's anything I didn't answer, bring it up. And it goes into some just kind of, uh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Uh, I'll just read it and explain it as we go, I guess. He says, Your damage control was a massive failure. I addressed some of it in my video uploaded last night, but it's all absolutely dismantled by my new book, which also refutes your heretical, hyper-dispensationalism, multiple gospel nonsense. All right, so instead of telling me what I didn't answer, he just plugs his book and goes on this just offensive. And again, it's just empty words, right? Because I could say the same thing. Your comments for damage control are a massive failure. I address everything you've brought up in my videos just recently this past week. And I got a book that refutes all your heretical, non-dispensational views of the gospel. Right? It's just empty claims. All right? And then he comments here, you have a lot of work to do if you think you can save the day for the pre-tribulation rapture fraud. And then he promotes his book, right? And then he says, refuting your endure to the end talking point, which are refuted in our debate and you ignored. You're good at repeating talking points in your echo chamber, but in live debate where you can be refuted, you run. No, actually, during the debate, before the debate, I had the runs. I was a bit dehydrated, and then my voice was going out. So I couldn't just, every time Donnie interrupted me, I couldn't just go, hey, 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 let me finish what I was saying, because my voice wouldn't go really any higher than this. And I didn't want to stress it out and not be able to finish the whole debate, because I didn't know if I did that, if it would just go out on me and then I couldn't talk. So I was just trying to be soft and say what I had to say when I had time to say it, and that was that. And I'm going to talk about why I think that actually happened momentarily. But anyway, um, that's the thing is like you can call me out in a video and I can respond to that. I mean, we can communicate through the comments, we can communicate through videos. It doesn't have to be through a debate, right? But debate is how he makes his living, right? In promoting his book. It's not about getting to the truth. It's a business thing going on here. Like he's a showman, right? This is about entertainment. because you have to entertain people and put on a kind of a show like this with some drama to get people's attention, right? And so I said, so there's nothing I didn't answer because he didn't bring anything up, right? And I was told him, yeah, I just made 3 videos about the pre-tribulation rapture. Uh, about a 2-hour video where I established the pre-tribulation rapture, and then 2 follow-up videos, almost 2 hours long, with tidbits proving the pre-tribulation rapture and disproving a post-trib rapture, a mid-trib rapture, and a pre-wrath rapture. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think he's going to go through those. I think what he wants is to cause some drama here and to entice another debate so that uh, he can make money. And not only that, so that I could sit through 3 hours of being talked over and interrupted and passively aggressively insulted, where they tried to end that debate with bringing up an insult from somebody. So, yeah, uh, that's not what I would want to do. I'll talk about that a bit more as I go through what I'm going to bring up here. But then the last comments here, and at the end of the video, I'll check to see if he responded. He says, laugh out loud, okay, you and I both know you have to lie to hold on to pre-tribulationalism. The debate speaks for itself, and so does my new book and end time series, Keep Running from the Truth. And I was like, what did I lie about? So there's 2 claims he puts out. You didn't answer anything. All right, so what didn't I answer? What is it? I have to lie? What am I lying about? You see, just making these claims, but he's not proving anything. He has no problem fluffing things up and just saying things. Evidence is not a requirement. And it reminds me of somebody. When I was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I was just getting discharged from the Army, I had some time on my hands, and I've had news that my cousin got leukemia, and she was only 23 years old. And I was like, how the heck does someone that young get leukemia? So I was looking at what can cause leukemia. And I found out that benzene seeps into the bones and into the bone marrow and is stored there. Your body doesn't seem to flush it out too well. So it ends up accumulating there. And if the benzene accumulates into the bones like that, it can cause basically the blood cancer, leukemia. And I was like, wow. So I was like, how the heck do you get this benzene into your bones, right? And while I was looking into this, there was this Seventh-day Adventist who was born and raised a Seventh-day Adventist, Marcus Schrockenthaler. And he was a salesman. He had different products that he made and obviously sold them. And a lot of them had to do with health, because Seventh-day Adventists are a lot about being like vegetarian and vegan and eating kosher and all that good stuff, right? And a lot about health. And he had this drink that he was promoting, and he was actually kind of pushing towards me to try to sell to other people, right? Basically, like a little Ponzi scheme. I wasn't really interested, but uh, he just seemed to be like some guy who wanted to take me under his wing or whatever, right? And I talked to him or whatnot. And while I was talking to him, I was looking up this stuff. Sodium benzoate and citric acid. When these 2 things mix and they're heated, and this could be just above room temperature, so like 75 degrees, this can start to happen. And let's say you have sodium benzoate and citric acid in a drink. if you have it stored in a bottle, in a can, and it's in the back of your car, the back of your truck, or it's in the shipping trucks where they're not refrigerated, and the heat can get obviously above 75 degrees. You have it sitting in the sun while you're bringing this stuff out to the beach before you put it in the coolers and stuff. And they're already warm. You pick them up from the gas station, that sometimes they have them outside of the gas station in the sun. Well, these two chemicals here can be forming. And this is what you find a lot in diet sodas. And from what I remember about my cousin was drinking a lot of diet drinks. And I was like, holy cow, she must have drank a boatload because, and obviously wasn't caring about how they were stored because the sodium benzoate and citric acid would form and create benzene. And just another tidbit here, citric acid can also be known on the labels as ascorbic acid or vitamin C. These things will also mix with the sodium benzoate, which is a preservative, and form benzene. So when I was talking to this Schrockenthaler fella, I was saying, hey, your drink contains sodium benzoate and citric acid. If these things aren't stored in a cool temperature, they can create benzene. And if people keep drinking this, benzene doesn't flush from your system too well. It will stick into the bones, and it can cause leukemia. And he seemed to be like, whatever about it. And I was like, well, you at least got to tell people they need to store it in a cool place, and you need to ship this stuff out refrigerated. And again, it was just like a whatever. So I made a video talking about this fact right here. And he got upset with me and took it as some kind of attack, like I'm trying to destroy him and his business. And then it's like, no, I'm trying to help people. All right. I found it weird that somebody who's 23 got blood cancer. Like when I was younger, anybody who got cancer were older people, and it had a lot to do with where they worked. They were dealing with some chemicals. And now younger and younger people are coming down with cancer. And it's like, how is that happening? So I looked into it and I found this. So why am I bringing this up? Well, I was actually reading this at the laundromat. I was like, what am I going to read here? And I was like, what, I'll read Romans. And while I was going through here, I was talking about reprobates, right? And it says some pretty horrible things about these reprobates because they don't have a moral compass. Well, will you notice a couple things that stick out about the reprobates is debate, proud, boasters. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about that fella, Doug. I can't remember his last name, and I know it's with an S, but I don't think I could pronounce it too well. But he was talking about how he doesn't debate because it takes pride and some arrogance to you to want to debate because you think you have like these undefeatable arguments and you're just going to woo everybody over the arguments. And it's about you, and it's not about God. And I started to like see that and realize that because when I talk to people, I realize how I cannot help anybody get saved, right? Because I can sit here and I can study, I can break things down to the simplest forms so that simple people can understand it, children can understand it, and simple children can understand it. Yet that's not going to actually soften people's hearts and minds. It's not going to open their eyes and ears to the truth. The Spirit of God does that. It's all glory to God. And when you debate, you think your argument is going to win over whoever you're debating and the audience. And that's just not how it works. Well, you can see this with atheists when you can bring up something simple like life only comes from life. That's a scientific fact. When you study life, every life form that you find came from something that was living. There's no evidence of the contrary. To say that life came from something not living is not science. It's speculation. It's imagination. It's not real. And then you tell them that, and they'll say it's an assertion. You assert that life can only come from non-life. Life. And it's like, no. This is what we see. That's science. Science is something you can observe and test and predict, right? We can observe this. We can put it under the test, and we can predict that life is only going to come from something living, right? And we see that that's always the case. That's not an assertion, but you see how the atheist will say something like that. They'll just dismiss it. So it's not about you and your arguments and this evidence that you're going to bring forth. Ultimately, that doesn't matter. That's just between you and God and convincing yourself. The only thing that's really going to get to people is the Spirit of God. Debating isn't going to do it. But I would be lying to you if I said I didn't like checking out debates now and then, because you get to hear arguments for and against your side. But I think that's more of what it's for. You're not actually going to be winning anybody over. And a lot of times it does what you see going on with the comments I'm having with Donnie B. It's more of this butting heads and this strife that you also see talked about here. And that's not something I'm really fond of getting into, right? I want to preach the gospel, warn people about the mark of the beast, and learn about God and share what I learn with others. And that's about it. I don't think anything I'm going to bring up is going to convince Donnie. It's going to have to be the Spirit of God to humble him, and he would have to accept the humbling. But that leads me to think of some other things about people like Donnie, which I'll bring up momentarily. But another thing that is said about debating here in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 20, it says, I fear lest when I come I shall not find you such as I would, and that I shall be found unto you such as ye would not, lest there be debates, envyings, wraths, strifes, backbitings, whisperings, swellings, tumults. And it was like, again, with the debates. And that's what I see, right? There's nothing really good said about debates and debating and debate in the Bible. But there's a few things that tie it into things that you don't want to be part of, right? But we also got these warnings about people like the Schrockenthaler I was mentioning, and about Donnie B over here, just promoting his book instead of answering questions. It's like, hey, well, what didn't I answer? I'll answer it right now. But what did I lie about? Let's get that cleared up. It's all explained in my book for just 4 payments of $19.99. A bit of an exaggeration, and hopefully it's not that much for his book, but yeah. Just a salesman here. And we see 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1, it says, But there were false prophets among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you, who privily shall bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. And many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, whose judgment now of a long time lingereth not, and their damnation slumbereth not. Now, Donnie claims to believe the gospel. Say, by grace through faith, that not of yourselves, but the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. By his confession, I say he's a saved man. But then when I look at him and I read stuff like this, and I'm like, how doesn't the spirit that is sealed to this man not convict him that what he's doing is selfish and worldly? I ask myself, why isn't he chastised? Right? Getting correction from God. And it just makes me wonder, like, how is that? And I think, well, there's people who believe in their head, but not in their heart. It's like, yeah, maybe. But anyway, right here, I like what it says about feigned words. In case you're not sure what that means, here it says with well-turned words or well-formed words. Or like here, it is formed, molded, made up, counterfeit, right? And that's a good example of what we see right here from Donnie, where it's like, hey, what didn't I answer? Check out my book, and I refute this argument you made. And not only that, you're a liar. But what did I lie about? I don't know if he'll respond. So a lot of the times when we're talking, once the conversation's over for that moment, I guess, he usually doesn't come back. So this might be the last comment here. That's just how he does his thing, I guess. But anyway, this other thing I wanted to bring about merchandise. It's just, again, trade, traffic, make gain, or business of. And that's exactly what Donnie's done. He's made a business out of debating and selling books using God, Christianity. And you're turning the temple of God into a place of merchandise. And Jesus actually says something about that. And I just don't get how people aren't convicted about this. You see all kinds of Christians doing this, even ones I really look up to. I always had that mindset of like, well, Jesus said, you've been freely given, then freely give, right? But there's a passage here. Temple, a place of merchandise. Let's check that out. And I mean, if these things don't convict people like Donnie, then it's like I don't know what to say here. And for some reason, I'm getting all kinds of Old Testament stuff. So let's see if I had it right here. Okay, John 2:16. Let's use that one. Let's close that out. Okay. I guess I'll start at verse 13 so we get the context clear. It says, and the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves and the changers of the money sitting. Now, we wouldn't think what they're doing was wrong, right? Well, verse 15 it says, and when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves, take these things hence, make not my Father's house a house of merchandise. We are the temple of God. And Peter warns us, Paul warns us of them making merchandise of us. So You just got to watch out for people like this who claim to be Christian, even preaching the gospel, right? But Paul mentions, I believe it's in Philippians, that there's people who are preaching the gospel out of a good heart, and then there's people who are preaching it not. So let's just check that out real quick. I think it's in chapter 1 here. Okay, yeah. He's in prison, and he says, there's many waxing stronger and more bold because of this. And he says at verse 15, some indeed preach Christ even of envy and strife, and some also of goodwill. The one preach Christ of contention, not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. The other of love, knowing that I am set for the defense of the gospel. What then, notwithstanding, every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is preached, and I therein do rejoice, yea, and will rejoice. And I rejoice in that. We even have Jesus talking about that over here in Matthew chapter 7. These Christians doing these good things. Let's come over here. At verse 21 it says, not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. So we got people here doing good things, right? Prophesying in Jesus' name, casting out devils in his name, and doing wonderful works in his name. So they could be doing miracles and helping out the poor and doing all these things in Jesus' name, but Jesus doesn't even know them. Right? So you just got to praise the fact that God uses people that don't even truly believe. Right? So, yeah. Am I saying Donnie is lost? I'm saying that I doubt that he truly believes the gospel. By his confession, I say that he's saved. But we're also told, you know them by their fruit. And I know if I did things like this, my conscience would get to me, and I know my life would fall apart. So when I see other people claiming to be Christian, and they're not convicted, and they're prospering, it makes me wonder. God could be dealing with them differently because they're different than I am. That could be it. Or it could be that they don't truly believe the gospel in their heart. They don't believe in freely receive, freely give. I don't know. But that's up for you to judge. I just put my 2 cents in about it. Because we are in the Laodicean church, where the people are poor, blind, and naked, and they think that they're rich and in need of nothing. So we're in that age. The wheat grow among the tares. Tares grow among the wheat. So, that being said, thanks for watching and take care.
Jesus' suffering on the cross is a picture difficult to understand. He was betrayed by a friend, arrested and falsely sentenced to death. He was beaten and whipped. A crown made of thorns pressed into his head. Bearing the cross, he stumbled and staggered up the hill to Golgotha. Each step of the journey getting worse, spit on, cursed, and mocked. But Jesus never looked back. He kept going. Jesus could have avoided the cross, called down fire from heaven, or summoned legions of angels to rescue him, to save him. But Jesus was not interested in saving himself. He was all about saving you. Every detail of this torturous path to the cross was part of God's plan to bring you to him. We're all broken. We've all messed up and have all made wrong choices. And no one had to teach us as a baby about anger and selfishness. We just came out that way, sort of a sin covering. But on the cross, with his blood he shed, the Bible says Jesus blotted out our record of sin, nailing it to his cross. The blood of Jesus washes away our sin covering. And his blood is our ticket to enter through a new door, a forever relationship door with God. So what do we do with this great news? The Bible says if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You see, it's not enough to believe in Jesus with just your head. You must believe with your heart. Now, there's just one person alone at the foot of the cross. It is you. What will you say to Jesus? Say, thank you, Jesus, for shedding your blood for me. I'm giving you my heart today, Jesus. I do believe you died for me and that you were raised from the dead for me. Please give me a new heart and a new life right now. God hears you, and he is answering your prayer. The love of God is being poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit.